All right, so this part's going to be a little bit complicated. Animating the enemies sounds like it should be pretty easy, but it's actually annoyingly difficult. Um, so what we need to do for this is first we're going to have our enemies chase us, and the way we'll do that is here where we have our enemy logic, we're going to have our object sprite dot follow, and we'll put our player sprite in here. And this is pretty simple, but now we got, oh man, the bat is chasing us. It's way, way, way too fast. We're never going to be able to outrun it. It's basically the same speed as us, so they're always going to catch us because they're taking the most direct path. So what we're going to do is add another parameter here, which is going to be the speed, and we'll make it 50. So we have a speed of 100. They have a speed of 50. So now the chase is a lot more reasonable. It's a lot more feasible to avoid them. You know, it's not as terrible and it feels a little bit better. So our enemies are still chasing us around, but it's not as bad. Now I want to animate these guys. This is a bit of a problem. And the problem is I need to keep track of the direction of these. So the first thing I need to do is actually store them in an array so that I can call them one by one, and then check the direction that they're facing and set the animation based on that. So in order to do that, what I have to do is actually create a new type. We haven't done any work with type yet, and we're going to get more into this in the future. But the type essentially allows us to create our own. It's sort of like working with classes in a way in TypeScript. It's just an easier way of doing it. So we're going to have a type called enemy. Is enemy already built in, by the way? I'm just curious. No, it's not. Okay. Type enemy equals, and then we can set what values or properties are of this. And one of the properties is going to be a sprite, which is going to be a type of sprite. And then the other one is going to be a direction, which is going to be a string. So we'll have left or right essentially as the direction. And now down here with our logic here for our object sprite, I'm going to create a new enemy, let enemy equal, and it's going to be of type enemy equal, and then we'll put this in here, object sprite, and then we can have an initial. Sorry, we need to set this sprite, object sprite, and then direction left, like that. I believe would be okay. Yeah, but I don't want it to always be left. So in order to get the direction, we're going to say if object sprite dot x and we'll do this, direction equals left, let direction equal left, and then if object sprite, so in order for it to be on the right side, the object sprite would need to be higher. No, well, that direction would be left then because we want it to be going to the left. So in order for this to want to be facing to the right, we need the object or the bat to be on the left side of our player, which means the x value needs to be lower than our player's x. Player sprite.x, direction equals right, and then I'll just make the direction equal direction. So it'll either be left or right to start, that's fine. So now we have a way of tracking our enemy, but we need to store our enemies now. So we're gonna have to create a new list here, or a new array, which is going to be called enemies. And then the type is going to be enemy list. And then it's going to equal an empty list, just like this. So we're going to have a list of enemies. They're going to be of the type enemy, and we're going to be able to add to that. So when I go here now, what I want to do is we'll say enemies dot push enemy. So I can add my enemy to my list of enemies. So all that being said, now we've got something getting started here. We've got our enemies being placed onto a list of enemies. Now I need to create a new function that's going to be specifically for animating our enemies. So animate enemies. And what I want to do essentially is iterate through all of them for let I equal 0, I is less than enemies.length, I plus plus. And that way each enemy is essentially represented by enemies I. So even if I have 100 enemies, I'm going to be iterating through them all one by one. I need to get the initial, I need to figure out what the direction is, and I need to figure out if a direction change has occurred. So what I need to do is compare these two. So I need to say if enemies I dot x is sort of like this right here. Actually, we can do this exact same logic, but we're going to change object sprite x to enemies I dot x. Just like that. Oh, wait, what? Oh, enemies I dot sprite dot x. There we go, because the sprite is contained within that enemy type. So enemies I dot sprite dot x is greater than player sprite dot x, then the direction is going to be right. Otherwise, the direction is going to be left. And then what I need to do is see if the direction matches the previous direction. If it does, then we just want to break out of here. So we're going to say if direction equals enemies I dot direction, then we're going to continue to the next one. We're not going to do anything because that means the animation has already been set for it, essentially. The initial animation has been set. Otherwise, what we'll do is we're going to grab our animation thing down here. This is the logic for animating that we used before. Put that right in here. And we'll say enemy, we'll call this one's going to be enemies I.sprite. And then instead of walk down, it's going to be enemy left and enemy right. So now if direction equals left, do this. Actually, I need a separate function for this part too. I'm going to have another function called animate enemy. And this is going to take a sprite. And this is going to be where this animation logic goes. And then direction. So we'll say if, I guess if this is the case, we just do this. We do enemy and then enemy type. Okay, so if enemy dot direction equals left, we do the animation to the left. Enemy dot sprite, and then else we do the same thing but to the right. And now we would say we want to set the direction first, so we'll say enemies I.direction equals direction. So we're resetting it. If it changed, we're resetting it to whatever the new direction is, and then animate enemy, and then we'll pass in enemies I. And the reason I did it this way is because now I can also pass this in here. We can say animate enemy, enemy, right here. Why doesn't it like that? Okay, let's see. Look at that. Well, it's backwards. It was flying backwards. They're flying backwards. They are animated though, so that's good news. They are animated. I don't know why they're flying backwards. We'll have to check on that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that in the next one.